Hi, this is Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center, and I want to welcome you to our workshop tonight on spinal exercises and posture correction. In our office, we focus on these biomechanical changes, and we recognize the fact that given the right opportunity to understand the starting point, where we're starting from, it allows us to better map out what needs to be done to get you back to that better place, the optimal posture of the spine and the body. Now here's the thing. If you've never gotten your spine checked, pause. The first thing that you want to do is not continue with this video to try and do all of these exercises and all these posture corrections, because the problem is that you're going to get frustrated. You're like, oh, he's telling me not to stretch. He's telling me not to do exercises. Well, the answer is yes, that's exactly right. Because I want you to think about it. If your car's out of alignment and you want to drive it down the road and, you're just driving at a leisurely, Sunday stroll. Well, okay, it's the ride's going to be a little bit rough, but you're going to be okay. What happens when you put your foot on that accelerator? What happens when you give the car a little bit of gas? Those tires that are out of alignment, that engine that's not tuned properly, all of a sudden produces a really rough ride. In fact, let's think about flooring it, going all out, just like most guys do in the gym, just like most people who do that play athletics, and all of a sudden you're burning the candle on all ends, and the next thing you know, this car of yours that was going down the road a little bit rough, all of a sudden is impossible to keep in the lane where it's supposed to be. Well, let me tell you, your body's no different. Because when you have a problem and the body's not working properly and is not in good alignment, as you start to create more and more physical stress by doing the exercise, by asking it to perform more repetitive motion activities, all of a sudden those things that were already not good have gone from bad to worse. And this is where we commonly see people saying, and they always utter that four-letter word, I just did some stretches. I was just bending over to touch my toes. I was just reaching down for a dumbbell. I was just trying X, Y, and Z. And the problem is at that point, you've done more harm in the body. So I'm going to ask you, if you're watching this video, you've never gotten checked, push pause. Find a local chiropractor to do exactly that. Get checked. Test the spine of yours. Make sure that it's physically capable of engaging, so that as you engage these exercises, they build the body up and not create more stress and break the body down over time. So with that being said, let me introduce. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Let me tell you, I love the fact that when we're getting adjusted and you're already doing that, the next thing that we need to be doing is making sure that we're engaging the body to keep everything loose and limber and offsetting the physical stresses that we put into it every single day. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you have no idea what anterior head carry is, if you have no idea what that forward head posture is, I'm going to encourage you to go back on our YouTube channel or on Facebook and watch one of those videos that explains exactly what it is and how it affects the body so very much. Because I'm going to tell you, in the end, that's one of the most important of the postural distortions to be able to get rid of. Now, if you don't know what it is, I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview. It's when you start doing this. It's when the head starts moving forward away from the body. And in fact, all of a sudden, gravity is pushing down, and it continues to make it worse with time. At the Limerick Chiropractic Center, we provide not only crisis care, where obviously people are already damaged and their body needs to be rebuilt. we give them the opportunity of obviously engaging in what's called maintenance care, which helps to, continue to improve the body. But then the preventative is to make sure that we're teaching and training patients how it is that they can better make sure their body is offsetting all of the negative stresses so that they never rebuild the problem that they had before. In fact, for many of us, stretches seems like, oh, it's so simple. Let me just tell you, these very fine tissues around our spine need to be engaged on a regular basis. And if we're not doing so, that old adage, if you don't use it, you'll lose it, it absolutely holds true. Because I'm going to tell you, there are some myths that are out there that I commonly hear. In fact, patients say this to me all the time. Once you lose your flexibility, it's gone. It's like, oh my goodness, I can't touch my toes anymore. Oh my goodness, I have to squat at my knees in order to be able to tie my shoes. And poor posture is only hereditary, and there is nothing you could do about it. Now, these are absolutely myths. Because I'm going to tell you, on the other side, what is fact? Listen, as we stretch, we're able to gain flexibility back into the body. There is so much research out there in regards to the fact that you can produce change in our body. I just had a patient tonight share with us, how over time she has actually changed her chemistry in her body drastically. Something that most people would never consider a possibility. And yet this individual drove her body to a point by changing her diet, changing how she fueled her system to actually respond very, very differently than it ever did before. Is it possible? The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, you can drastically, change your flexibility in just simply weeks. And likewise with your posture, patterns do run in families. I had a patient in here the other day who was talking about all of the women in her family have humps. We look like our parents on the outside, we look like them on the inside. Sometimes because physically we have the same, same setup within. Other times we entrain. We actually learn by what we see them doing. So the habits, the behaviors, the mannerisms, we start carrying those. We start to see those in our mind's eye and we duplicate those, and it shows up in our posture. So is it true that poor posture is only hereditary? The answer is no. You can learn it from people around you that are not family. But like anything else, it's who you spend the most amount of time with. Now, I will tell you, as we move through this, you're going to be thinking about people that that they need to hear some of this information. They need to hear a little bit more about, about stretches, about how it is that they can help themselves. And maybe they just simply need to hear about the fact that they need to go get checked. Because in the end, if you don't know how to tell your own posture, that would be one of the very first steps for you to be able to learn to help yourself. In fact, when we do posture checks, we constantly look at things like tilts in your head, your mid-back, your low back, the shifts that occur where you are moving away from the plumb line, that main line that's supposed to be there. And listen, these are not chiropractic conversations. Everybody, as they go through, classic medical training, classic anatomy and physiology, are trained and taught the same exact thing. These reference points are universally found. It just so happens as a chiropractor, we specialize in not only the detection of subluxations, but the detection that produces an effect called altered posture. So when we look at the twists and turns, we see those in the head, the shoulders, the low back, or the hips. We commonly see them there. And here's the thing. The more of those things that we see, the worse the spine is functioning. And in fact, the health of our body is in direct proportion to the health of our spine and our nervous system. If our spine, if we're seeing poor posture, poor health is there. And don't let anybody fool you saying, hey, listen, you know what? I don't care what your spine looks like, it can't affect your stomach. Or it can't affect, how your bladder works. Shake your head. Walk away. Because obviously you're speaking to somebody who's ignorant of how the body is actually designed and put together. Embryology 101 says one thing. The spine is the very first thing in the body to form. All other structures form because of it. That spine runs absolutely every structure, every organ, every system. And in fact, all healing comes from within. So like you commonly hear me say, the power that made your body is the power that runs your body. It's also the power that heals your body. If we remember those things, we have an ability to unleash an incredible healing potential that's already within each and every one of us. Therefore, by improving this spine of ours, we get the opportunity of improving the health and function of all the other tissues inside of our body. Now, I would love to say that you're going to become an expert by watching this and by having the opportunity of just viewing this video. I'm going to encourage you, if you have questions about how to perform some of these exercises, I want you to leave me a comment. I want you to ask, because here's the thing. A little bit of knowledge is good, but having somebody reflect with you, give you that guidance, helping to fine-tune it, well, guess what? That takes something that you're doing that's okay and good to exactly what's needed, which is great and better. All right? So let's jump into this. In fact, we're going to talk about some stretches for your neck that are there to help your posture. And I'm going to tell you, the very first thing on this list is what's called cervical tractioning. If you've never been introduced to it, let me grab a couple toys here, because there's all different types of devices that we use here in the office. These are really basic foam wedges that are different shapes, different sizes, that allow us to help to mold, to actually help to reform the neck over top of it, which helps to work the ligaments. And in turn, by changing the structure of the ligaments over time, by stretching them and reforming them, sort of like bending a piece of wood. Wetting the wood, bending it over, letting it dry, it enables it to take this new shape and form. Same thing inside your body. These are really simple versions. We also have one that some that we use here that are more complicated, that allow us to actually move the head backwards and be capable of actually positioning you back into that best anatomical position, so that your body learns the new curvature and helps to improve that posture. Now, we also need to recognize one thing. When we talk about cervical tractioning, what's good for one is not good for everybody. Hence the reason why, we have so many different choices, so many different options, because in the end, by having those different choices and options, it helps us to customize the exact right solution for what you have going on. Now, these simple bands, these are two different bands that help with removing some of what's called anterior head carry. In fact, this one is called the posture pulley. It's a simple device. It just simply goes behind the head, and as you're pulling forward, you're actually stabilizing. As you're pulling forward with your arm, you're stabilizing the neck. It re-strengthens the muscles in the back of your neck, so that you are more capable of actually physically holding the head up. Many of us, as we've spent, not just weeks or months, but years and decades carrying our head more forward, well, we have strained the muscles in the back of our neck, and we have to re-strengthen them to be able to actually hold us up into the proper position. Now, this band is called a prolordotic, and lordosis refers to the curve in your neck, and this is actually designed to pump the joints. So as opposed to the other one, this goes behind the neck at different levels, and as you're pulling down, you're able to pump motion into those different joints. And when we think about one of the biggest problems with subluxation, with the bones being out of place, is it causes the joints to jam together, to not move and be able to pump fluid into the disc the way it's supposed to. So this allows us to pump motion back into those joints, and in doing so, enhance the body's ability to regenerate and actually restore that nutrient flow into the disc where it's supposed to be. So, like I said, we're going to be sticking to some exercises that are going to produce very, very definitive postural changes for you. And there are dozens of different ones. Does it make one better than the other? It's just I pick and choose ones that are simple and easy and yet super effective at directly addressing different issues that are very common in our patient base. Now, with the mid-back, there's a bunch of different exercises again. In fact, what we're going to do is, I'm going to get down on the floor. I'm going to show you a couple of these different exercises because one of these is what's called a cat-cow. Now, the name sounds funny, but really what it boils down to is we're going to take this spine and we're going to create this flexibility. We're going to actually take it through a full range of motion. And for most people, their mid-back, their chest area is so tense and so locked up because it's trying to compensate. It's compensating for really poor posture. So particularly for those of you who have maybe a little excess curvature in the middle part of your back, you'll feel this as soon as you do this cat-cow, because you're going to feel that stretching, that ends up occurring. And let's get this out of the way. And I'm just going to get down here. And as I do this, what I want you to notice is the exaggerated motion that you're going to drop your chin down. You're going to make sure that you're bringing all the way down. And as you do that, you're actually going to raise up that middle part of your back. And then slowly, you're going to drop your stomach all the way down to the ground. And as you do so, I want you to go ahead and bring your head all the way up and back. And you should be squeezing those shoulder blades together as you do so. And this cat-cow, you're just going to repeatedly, slowly walk through that motion. And that's one of the keys to stretching success, is that you don't go quickly. You take it nice and slowly in order to make sure that you're feeling that really good quality stretch. Now, while I'm down here, I want to show you a different exercise. And this is called thread the needle. Now, if you've never seen one of these, most people find these to be a little uncomfortable. These are what are called foam rollers. A lot of people try and roll over top of them. Okay, that's one use, but we're going to use it in what's called thread the needle. And very simply, we're still going to be on the ground. We're going to be on all fours, but what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take, and I'm going to push my hand through, and I'm just simply going to be turning myself through this motion. It's a nice spinal stretch, and I'm not going to show it to you from the other side, but as we do this, what it's doing is it's stretching those muscles in the middle part of your back. Right there between the shoulder blades, where most people complain about that burning sensation, because as the muscles are so fatigued, they've gotten so tight, unfortunately they start burning, they start aching, because they're working so much harder than they're supposed to be. This is a really great stretch for that particular area. Now, for many, you've come to know this rhomboid stretch. In fact, it's actually a rhomboid stretching and strengthening exercise. So I'm going to show you this, and I have a band here, and I'm just going to show you this very simply. This exercise, and you probably know people like this. Let me put you into the position. If you've ever seen them, in fact, you probably have seen them in the gym, or you've seen the old ladies like this too. They take their shoulders and they sort of round them forward like this. It reminds me of a turtle. My daughters ride horse, and their coach at times, she would always talk to them, "You look like a turtle." That means they're slouching forward. Okay? And this position, unfortunately, what it does is it causes a lot of stress. It allows the rotator cuff, it allows your pec muscles all to shorten up, and it actually overstretches the rhomboids. So what this exercise does it's going to take us, and it's going to take us and move us in that opposite direction. So just real simply, I mean, we're going to take this band nice and loose in hand, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring our arms up and out, all right? It's going to form a W. We're going to hold it there for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then we're going to relax and come back down, all right? And when you do that, you want to feel those shoulder blades squeeze. I like to do it where I actually feel the elbows stay in like this so that I can really feel the base of my scapula, my shoulder blades just staying together so that I can feel that. And as I do that, it's stretching this and it's strengthening back there. Two things that are super important that, you know, if in fact you have that tendency towards actually just simply, you know, rolling your shoulders, like, you know, you're working at a computer, or I had somebody earlier today say, oh, I caught myself in the car, you know, I started to get intense, I started to lean into it, and all of a sudden I'm doing this, and we've all been there. We've all done that. As we look at the low back, things like standing hamstring stretches, calf stretches are super important to make sure that, you know, if those areas are tight, then we actually stretch them out. But the problem is that most people don't realize is that their problem isn't with having to stretch their hamstrings out. They actually need to strengthen them up. And this is where, you know, we talk about the fact that at times, if you're not taking an x-ray and you're not looking within, a little bit of knowledge or that feeling could be a dangerous thing. I mean, I hear all the time, oh, I know my body. I know when I need to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, so tell me about your exercises. And they tell me what they're doing, and the next thing I know is I'm looking at the muscle groups that they're activating in. It's exactly the wrong groups. They're over-strengthening some, and they're weakening others, and they're creating this huge imbalance. Well, oftentimes what ends up happening, if in fact there's too much of an angle, it's called an anterior pelvic tilt. If there's too much of an angle, what ends up happening is it puts a tremendous amount of stress in your low back. It overstretches the hamstring muscles, so when you try and bend forward just to touch your toes, just to reach down, all of a sudden, this thing's already stretched out. You can't stretch it anymore. Your body's revolting against you. Not what you want to have happen. This is one of those exercises I'm going to caution you. This is my word of warning. Don't do that. The combination of exercises that are listed under the anterior pelvic tilt, if you don't know exactly what that sacral base angle is, don't do it. You know, the right action taken at the wrong time only leads to more problems, all right? Creates that greater amount of breakdown. In fact, you know, oftentimes, you know, if we're subluxated, the bones aren't in their proper alignment, and we start doing these exercises, unfortunately, those things can at times make things worse. Hence the reason why we started this conversation with talking about simply, hey, listen, if you've never gotten checked, stop. Go get checked. I love the fact that that is available. There are great chiropractors out there to make sure that you have that opportunity of simply getting that spine of yours checked. Now, I know for some of you, you know, you have questions about some of the things that we presented tonight. Maybe you have questions about some of the things that you personally are going through that you want to pose. Stop. In all of our videos, I tell you the same thing. Number one, like this video. Number two, I want you to put your questions in that comment section so that I can see them and I have that opportunity of actually responding either directly online or next time that you're in the office, talking to you while you're here so that we can work through some of those better choices. But I want you to pose those questions now, because I know we're all the same. 5 minutes after this video, we had a thought and then we forgot about it, and the next thing you know, that thought vanishes from our mind. And it's sort of like walking from room to room in our house wondering, why in the world did I come in here? Well, listen, don't make that mistake. Leave the comment below right away, all right? The final thing is our responsibility to share this information. Listen, I don't do these workshops for me. I love the fact that when we do these workshops, there are people out there that we get to help. We get to help them without ever coming to know them. And in fact, I realize that in doing that, I need your help. If you're not sharing the information, if you're not putting it out there to your friends group, then unfortunately, the benefit of this message ends right here and right now with you. And it's not okay. It's not okay because we all know somebody who we've looked at. We've seen their posture. We know that their posture isn't right. And yet, they don't know what you know. And in the moment of sharing, that's all that we can do. Maybe that's all we can do to help them get unstuck from things that have, well, weighed them down. The shackles that have not allowed them to move forward. My hope is that you do that. You share this information. They get unstuck and they get to live a more vibrant life because of something that you did to help somebody else out. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments. I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center.